Okay, so I'm sewing a beaver parka and I ran out of hides, so I gotta tan more. And I've got two big hides that I'm tanning, and both of them are kind of grease burned because they're old. They've been sitting around for a long time, and they had some grease in them still. So I have a big pot of soapy water inside the tent, and I rehydrated them in the big pot of water, and then I put them outside to freeze, and then I brought them back in and I put them in the warm water again, and I opened them up, and then I squeegeed them out and then put them back out to freeze. And the freezing and thawing is helping open up the fibers to help rehydrate the hide. And so this is kind of what it's looked like after about 3 times of doing that. I also have a little metal tool that I'm using to help like open up the hide, and I'm stretching it with my hands to open it up. And then there's also soapy water. There's also some dish soap in that water too to help degrease it a little bit. So I've got the other one already racked up in a little rack, and now I'm going to free scrape both of these to thin them. Yeah. Okay, so after getting this hide fully rehydrated, so that there aren't any spots that are still like rawhide, I put it in this handy little metal frame. This is the first time that we've used these metal beaver frames, and we have always just made wooden ones. And these things are awesome. The only thing is they're not quite as like stable as the wooden ones, and so this can like flex a lot. And so when I'm scraping the hide, I could just take it out of the frame, but it'd be kind of hard to do that right now because it's frozen. But I'm just using the piece of plywood as like a backing because this frame isn't super stable. I mean, you could do all sorts of different things. You could lace it up into a more solid wooden frame and do this, but you just want it to be like stretched out, and you want it to be frozen, and it needs to be like super cold out. Like right now it's like 25 below or something like that. And so as I'm scraping it, the hide isn't it's not thawing out, so you want it to be like totally frozen. And you could probably do this, oh, I don't know, probably down to like 0 degrees, but any warmer than that probably wouldn't work very well. Usually we dry scrape our beavers, and so this is the first time that I've free scraped a beaver, and so far it's way easier than dry scraping. And so with beavers, you want to the face and the cheeks and the back area, like this area down the spine here, are the thickest, and the bellies are pretty thin. So the bellies don't really need to be thinned, so I'm just going to do like one pass with the dry scraper along the bellies, just kind of a light scrape. So I'm going to do the entire hide one time, and then I'm going to go over the thick areas multiple times until they match the kind of the thickness of the belly. They'll be a little bit thicker than the belly probably, but beavers are notoriously hard to soften. So you have to, if you're doing traditional tanning, then you have to thin them. Otherwise, they're just really hard to tan. So this is a dry scraper. This one's made by Nate Johnson. It's super nice. It's really hard. It holds an edge for a long time. You want to make sure that the hides don't, like, you don't want to use sandy or silty water. Like, I took snow melt water and rehydrated these hides. Like, you wouldn't want to use dirty river water that has, you know, a lot of sediment in it, because it'll dull your tool. So when you're really trying to like remove a lot of material, you can like really like push pretty hard And you can see that you get these nice long strips, and that's what you want. You want to be as even and methodical as possible, because you don't want there to be like, you know, spots that you miss that have big ridges. And so yeah, I'm just gonna go over the whole hide once, and then I'll focus on this. And sometimes it's helpful if you go in one direction one time, and then the second time you do it, you go a different direction, and that'll help make the hide a little bit more even. Yeah. You know, and you can see where I you know, there's these little ridges that have been missed, and so you kind of just, like this spot here, you can go over that again, like that, or you can just hit it at a different angle. So I'm going to sit out here and hopefully not freeze my butt off and my fingers. This is dreamy. When you're dry scraping or pre-scraping, it's super important that your scrapers are like razor sharp. So when you're scraping, it should feel like the scraper is grabbing the skin, and if it doesn't feel like that, then you need to sharpen. So you need to sharpen fairly often, and you can also use the whole scraper when you're scraping, so you can like use the center portion first until it starts feeling like it's getting dull, and then you can move to the sides. So then you're evenly you're evenly dulling the blade. This blade is a different style than this one. These are both made by the same person, Nate Johnson. This one is more for like finishing because it has this more of a flat face, so you can get rid of a lot of those ridges. But if you use these corners, then they end up taking a little bit deeper strokes. So I'm gonna sharpen both of these because basically both of them, after just doing, you know, half of that beaver, they just need a little bit of touching up. So I just take, this is a very worn out diamond stone, but this is like a fine, it's just a fine diamond stone, and you don't use a file on these. These are too hard. If it's good quality steel, it's too hard, so you won't be able to just use a file on it. And a file is not fine enough anyways to get a good sharp edge. And the trick is getting this maintaining this bevel angle here. And so when you place your stone on here, you place it on like this, and then you tilt it towards this face until you see that gap close, right? And that means that the stone is at the same angle as the original bevel. And then you do these circular motions while keeping this at the right angle, and that angle changes because it's a round surface. So you kind of got to get the hang of it, but you don't want to go past that angle and round this edge off, right? So this is how I sharpen, and other people might have better ways or different ways, but this works for me. So you do, if you sharpen often, you won't have to sharpen as much, right? So I don't need to do very much sharpening. I just did a couple passes, and I can feel this little micro burr on this flat edge. The most important thing with these is that you do not, when you're on this flat face, you maintain this perfectly flat bevel, okay? And I'm just using actually just the extra fine side, and I'm just taking off that burr a little bit. Sometimes that burr is actually kind of helpful to have, but you never ever want to take this flat face and make it not flat anymore. So you never want to sharpen it like this. You always want to maintain that perfect flatness. Otherwise the blade will not work the way it's supposed to. So see, I can already feel that just a couple passes kind of put that nice sharp edge. The other way you could tell is, you can't see it on camera, but you will be able, if this thing is dull, you will be able to literally see a shiny edge all the way along when you put it in the light. Right now you can kind of see this shimmery part from where I sharpen, but that's not what I'm talking about. If we take this one, this metal is at like negative 20 degrees right now, so it's frosty. But as you're sharpening, I mean, this feels fairly sharp to me, but I know that it's not as sharp as it could be because it's not grabbing the skin the way it was when I first started using it after I had sharpened it. So I'm just gonna do the same thing with this one. And at some point, you will have to go, because doing this by hand, you're not always holding it at just the perfect angle. So you're gonna, at some point, reestablish this whole edge, because what happens is these edges, instead of being a flat bevel that goes at a perfect angle this way, it'll become rounded. And so the more you do these little micro sharpenings, you'll round that edge over, and so you have to go back at some point and take a even rougher stone, and you have to like re-establish that like single bevel. You don't want there to be like all these little bevels that make this whole thing like super rounded. Otherwise it won't be very sharp. And so it's a good idea to like have a stone with you. It's like 30 below outside right now, so I'm not gonna like sharpen every time it feels like it's getting dull because like this metal is really cold. But it's a good idea to just, as you're sharpening, you just touch it up every so often, you know. So like on this one beaver hide, I used both of these and I made both of them slightly dull. And so, you know, you should keep them, you should maintain the sharpness so that you don't have to do a whole bunch of sharpening later on. And these tools will work way better if they're razor sharp. If you're struggling with getting good solid strokes, then it's probably because you're either not holding this at the right angle or it's not sharp. Okay, so I've gone over this whole thing once, and I was really gentle with these edges, and you can see where the skin transitions to being thin to being thicker, like you see that color change. And so for this whole outer section on the bellies, you just do one light stroke. You would probably make it too thin if you did hard strokes and you did multiple times, or even, yeah, just like hardly touch the bellies. Like they're already thin enough to soften easily. But you can see these areas here that have more skin, they're different color, right? And so like here you can see that I've gone deep enough there, like see how that color matches there. You can also go by feel. It's a little hard when it's frozen like this. When it's dry, you can kind of like hit it and hear the difference. But you can also see like that there's still skin. There's still extra skin here, and the goal is, you're not going to make it perfect, but the goal is to make it, you know, relatively even thickness throughout the whole skin. The bellies on beavers are almost too thin, so you don't really want to make your nice center portion the part that you're going to use for you're using this for, like, you know, you want there to be some structural integrity in your stitches, and bellies sometimes are so thin that they, like, the stitches will rip out. And so you don't want to make it quite as thin as the bellies, but you definitely need to make it thin, or else it will not be soft, or you'll have to work so incredibly hard that, and it still probably won't come out soft. But so now that I've done, I was really careful around the edge, and I did 2 passes on the center. Now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to clean up the spots that look like they're still have some thickness, and I'm also going to, like, get rid of these, like, kind of these ridges in here that you can see. And it's very obvious, you know, that there's these ridges, and you can even feel them, right? And so I'm going to go this direction now, and I'm going to kind of, like, even that out. And I'm not going to use the edges of the scraper. I'm going to use the center where it's more flat, and I can use the other scraper too that's a little more flat, and I can just, like, finish the center portion. But the edges are done. I just touched them one time, and then I'm not touching them again. So this one's a little flatter, and I can remove those, and now I don't feel those ridges as much. And I haven't touched this yet, and you can see the difference. Like, this is, you know, the color has also changed. I'm also not pressing as hard in this final step because I don't want to take as much skin off. I'm just kind of blending everything together. And I'm kind of going over these same spots to really get rid of all that. You can see I actually went too deep right here. See how there's like a totally different color, and I can feel that I accidentally took more off there. So that was a mistake, but you can see it. You know, you can see the difference between these two spots. Like that's a different color, and so it's gone deeper into the skin. So hopefully that won't be a problem. But.
Are you eating it?
I'm soaping my beavers. Okay, I'm putting the 2 beaver hides that I freeze scraped into some warm soapy water to grease them even more. Because these hides got grease burned, I'm just doing extra degreasing, but I mean it's not a bad idea to do it anyways, because beavers are so greasy. So yeah, I'm just, this is gonna take a little while to thaw out. But here is the other one, and so I'm just, you know, you can kind of see my thinning marks there, but for the most part it's pretty even. And I probably could have made it a little thinner, but it's for a garment that I want to be like relatively tough, so I didn't want to make it super thin. But I could have made them thinner. Yeah, and I'm just gonna let them sit in soapy water and work them a little bit, and maybe add more soap. The other way that you can do this is I could take the bark solution that we have in here, and I haven't done it, but supposedly you can use spruce bark solution, tanning solution, to like degrease the hides. Yeah, and then after this step, I'm gonna have to rinse them to get the soap out, and then I'm gonna tan them with soap and oil. We're tanning otters. Just kidding. just a really big beaver. Yeah, so this is the soapy water bath. They've been free scraped, and this is basically what a beaver hide looks like when it's fully rehydrated and opened up. And it has to be fully rehydrated in order for all the fibers to be open, and that way it'll accept the eggs or the brains or the soap and oil or whatever it is you use. So you can see that this one has some grease burn on it that didn't go away from scraping, but whatever, it's fine. But there's no spots that are basically like haven't been opened up, except this is kind of a good example. This is what it would look like if it wasn't opened up, but that's just a scar. That's probably why it's not. It probably is rehydrated, but it's like scar tissue, so yeah, but this beaver hide is fully rehydrated, and I'm just going to rinse it in some clean water to get the soap out, and then I'm going to probably hang it up or use this little tool. This is the good tool for opening up the skins, but this is also like a good little squeegee tool, so I'll probably squeegee it out really good to get as much of the moisture out of it as I can. And then like kind of like this. Yeah, it just is. It's basically going to do the same as wringing it, but you can't wring hides that have fur on it. So I'll probably do that and kind of squeegee a lot of the moisture out. You can hang it up and let it dry out and get a little tacky, but you don't want it to totally dry out. That way it'll soak up the brains or the eggs or whatever it is you use. And you can use this, if this hide wasn't opened up yet, I'd be rehydrating it, and you can use this tool to open spots up like that. Okay, so now after the step of washing the hides with dish soap and then rinsing them until they're not soapy anymore, it's like 30 below outside, so I can just put them outside and let them freeze again, and brought them back in this morning to thaw them out, and now I'm just letting the hides dry out. So I have one hanging up, and this one I'm just opening it up, so as it dries, I don't want it to like totally dry out, and so every so often I'm grabbing the hide and I'm just opening it back up, and this step is going to help the hide dry out a little bit, so that when you put it into the I'm going to use soap and oil. When I put it into the soap and oil solution, there won't be so much water in here, and the hide will actually absorb a bunch of that. I mean, I'll do multiple brainings. I'll put it in the solution multiple times and wring it out. But with furs, I can't really I can't wring this out like I would a deer hide, and so I just have to hang it up in a somewhat warm, dry place and let it slowly dry out, and then you have to open it up, otherwise it'll just turn back into rawhide. So you're just opening it up a little bit, and I'm not going to let this get totally dry, but I'm going to let it get kind of tacky, and then I'll make sure it's really opened up and then I'll put it in the soap and oil. Oh, hey there. Jared again. Working on the beavers. Right now I'm, what am I doing? I got this metal thingy here. This is just a little tool I made for opening up hides. Mostly I made it for doing caribou, but it works for beavers. And it's just an old saw blade, like an old hand saw blade, and just rounded so that it doesn't have sharp edges. And then it has just a flat, you can't see it, but it has basically a 90-degree edge around the edge. It's been worn down, so it's a little bit softer than that, but so right now this is the second. I've already done 2 soaks in my oil and soap bucket. So there's 2 beaver hides, 2 big beaver hides, and I used 2 gallons of water, warm water, and a half a bar of ivory soap, and 6 tablespoons of just whatever oil, but I just had canola oil that we use in chainsaws. And that's because we want to eat our eggs, and because we live in the bush and we don't have that many eggs, so I wasn't going to use them on this hide, and I didn't have any brains, so but it's the same thing. It's still brain tanning. And so these hides, basically after they were rinsed, they were kind of squeegeed out, and you don't want to wring furs like this because you can rip hair out. And so I basically just squeegeed out as much water as I could, and then I let them hang and dry, and opened them up, and then I put them in the solution, and I just let them sit in there, and I worked, worked the hide open and sloshed it around a little bit and let it sit for a half hour or something like that. And then I squeegeed the hides out again, and then I did this step, which is I just have a towel on a flat surface. And so this is essentially taking the place of what you would do if you were doing a deer hide, the ringing step. And the ringing step is important because it's important to brain multiple times to really get the brains or the oil or whatever you're using to penetrate the skin. And so the ringing step helps push all of that stuff that you want to get into the hide into the fibers, and then it pushes it through and pushes it out, and then you open the hide back up, and it's kind of tacky. If you do a brain tan deer hide or something like that, and you really wring it out, it becomes kind of tacky, and then you open up the fibers again. Well, because you can't really wring all the liquid out of this, you either have to hang it in a really warm, dry spot where it will dry out pretty fast, and as it's drying, you're opening it up. But it's pretty cold. It's really cold outside, and it's not that hot in the tent. I mean, it's warm, but it's not enough to really dry these out. And so I'm squeegeeing the water out with this tool, and so you can see all that liquid that comes out, and that's the soap and oil tanning solution. So I'm not doing it really hard, but you can see all that water that I'm getting out, all that solution that I'm getting out, and you can see when I do these thinner parts, you can see it turn white like that, right? So that's what you want to happen to most of the skin. It's kind of hard to do it in the thicker spots, but you want it to return back to the point where it doesn't have a ton of moisture in it, and you can see the fibers opening back up. and then when it's like that, when the whole skin is pretty much like that, then you put it back in the solution, and that way it'll soak up all that solution. And then you would do this again, and then you would start softening the hide. So this, again, this is like the third time, or no, this is the second time that I've done this. So it's already been in the solution twice. And the other thing that we didn't get a video of, but after the second braining, I just wrung these out with my hand, and then I put them outside to freeze. It's like 30 below outside right now, and so they just freeze within a couple minutes, and then that helps like open the fibers up even more, and helps the brains or oil penetrate. So I will do that a third time. So after I open these hides back up again, I'll soap and oil them a third time, and then take them out and squeegee them out, and then I can start actually softening the hides. So once this is wrung out, and then once this is dried out a little bit and gets tacky, and I put it back in the solution for the third time, then I'll take it out and kind of squeegee it one more time, and then I'll probably just put them outside to let them freeze, and then when I get around to it, I'll soften them. Okay, so this is after the second soaking in the solution, and it's just drying out, and opening it up with my kind of using my legs, and you can see like all this stuff that's turned white. So this hide, like, if right now the bellies are actually getting like close to being done because they're so thin, and they're actually really soft. So like this hide's, at least the belly part, is going to come out soft, but I'm still opening it up and trying to get the rest of this to dry out a little bit more, like these parts here, so that they'll really soak up the tanning solution. But right now these white spots will like really soak it up, and then won't need to soak it again. That'll be enough. So after this I'll soak it one more time, and then I'm just gonna put solution on the skin side the last time, because the fur is already starting to like get nice and dry, and when you're finishing the hide you want the fur side to be pretty dry, because it'll dry a lot faster. It'll be easier to soften. So yeah, pretty neat. And spots like that like don't really want to open up, you can take your little tool guy, and you can see it'll just like open that back up. See how that turns white? So that's just, this tool is awesome. And you can just take these spots that are drying up. A lot of these spots are like scars. So essentially with this step, I'm basically softening the hide as if I were finishing it, but I'm not getting it completely dry. Okay, this is step 1026 of the 2000 step ultimate beaver softening video extravaganza. So this beaver is basically already done, but we're gonna brain it again because why not? Yeah, no, this is like coming out. Like if we were to finish softening this and we were to like actually cable it, we haven't even cabled it. This is just like over our legs. And this is like, the bellies are basically dry and the back is almost dry. The cheeks are still wet, but like this is totally soft enough for clothes. But we're gonna make it wet again. Anyways, this is the canola oil and ivory soap mixture. So, just gonna...
Do you want the scoop?
I could use a sponge. So before, the first 2 times it was brained. I don't know how else to say it. It's brained. Last 2 times it was brained. I soaked the whole hide with the fur and all, but now the fur is getting nice and dry, and it's gonna be much easier to soften, do the final softening if the fur is dry. So I'm just gonna soak the skin side with the solution. So I'll just use a spongeroo. See how it just like really soaks it up really fast. And then you want to make sure like any spots like this that kind of dried out and got hard, you want to open those back up, or else they won't get the solution. These are all scars. Beavers like to fight with each other. So you can take your little handy dandy opener upper thingy. Yeah, they don't even really want to open up because they're scars. Scars get hard. Can't really do anything about it. And we're just undoing all that hard work.
It wasn't hard.
It wasn't hard. It's basically just putting the beaver up above the wood stove, and then every once in a while grabbing it and opening it up. And it got this soft just doing that, so when we're actually softening and actually like cabling it, then it will come out soft. And it's pretty thin, so we'll have to be careful about cabling it. Alright, this is naked beaver softening. Just kidding, I'm wearing pants. I'm doing the final softening on these 2 beaver hides. They're the ones up there. This is a bark tan moose hide that I'm working on. So right now I'm just every so often, like basically I'm just like switching between these two, like as that one sits and dries out a little bit, I'm working on this one and then opening it up, and then I'll put this one back up where it's a little warmer and let this one dry out a little bit while I work on the other one. So when you're softening, specifically beavers, you want to like really stay on top of any spots that start to dry out. And so the whole theory behind softening is there's all these collagen molecules in there, basically, that want to, like, they're hide glue, right? So they want to glue themselves together and turn this back into rawhide. And by putting the soap and oil in here, that helps get between those fibers, and it kind of inhibits them from gluing themselves back together, and it allows the fibers to like slide past each other. And so the whole point of softening is that as the hide is drying and those hide glues are trying to bind themselves together, you're breaking them apart. And so if there's spots that you want it to be like pretty tacky when you're softening, and as you pull on it you can see the hide kind of like turning white in spots that have lost enough moisture. If spots are still too wet, they stay kind of like, you'll feel them. I mean, they feel wet. And those, really you're opening these fibers, you're stretching them, but if there's too much moisture in here, you're really not doing anything. You're not, the point is that the part of the skin that you're trying to open up has lost enough moisture that when you pull it open, it kind of like turns white. But even though it turns white, it's not done yet. You have to keep working the hide and opening it up as it dries. These bellies, they look white and they feel soft, but that doesn't mean you can stop working on them, right? You can't stop working on them until they feel dry. And you can feel, like, if you put it up to your face is more sensitive than like at least my fingertips. And I can feel it still is like cold. So it still has moisture in there, and you can squish it and you can pull on it. And the other trick to knowing if it's dry or not is if you pull on it and it bounces back, then it's done. But this, even though this belly is soft and it looks like it's done, you pull it and it stays like that. It doesn't like bounce back. And so those are a couple things that you're looking for to see if it's totally dry. But I'm just like working the whole hide, but you do want to focus on the parts that are drying out first, which are the thinner parts of the hide. And those thinner parts are the bellies, or maybe like this spot, it almost seems like, for whatever reason, as it was, maybe when it was sitting outside and it was freeze drying a little bit, because what I did was, we're obviously not in our well tent right now, we're house sitting for friends, and so we had to bring these into town, and so I like froze these outside after I did the third soak in the solution, and then I had to like thaw them out in here, and then I opened them up a little bit and got them like all the way opened up, and then I draped them over a pole, and then I froze them outside. And that freezing thawing process like opens up the fibers, and it does aid in the softening. So like any point throughout this softening process, like I can just go throw this outside and drape it over a pole and it'll freeze. I mean, it's like 35 below right now, so it'll freeze really fast. And when it's warm like this and it goes outside into the sub-zero temperatures, it like will release moisture, and you'll see like frost build up on it, and you'll see it like billowing steam. And then the longer it stays outside, it would freeze dry. And what happens when a hide freeze dries is all that moisture inside of the skin, in between all of the fibers, it expands because it freezes, and then at super cold temperatures, it sublimates. And it takes a while to do this, but like theoretically I could put this hide outside, and if it stays really cold for a couple weeks, then this hide could lose all of its moisture through sublimation. And so the ice in there would go straight from being ice, and it would be expanded, and it would become gas, and that would basically soften this hide. You'd still have to do a little bit of like roughing it up and maybe cabling it a little bit, but that does a lot of the work for you. And it does help open up the fibers if there's spots that are getting a little crusty and you're having a hard time softening them. Like you could put a little bit of water on them and kind of open them back up, and then put that outside to freeze, and it would help those thicker spots, or the spots that aren't getting as soft, maybe like spots around this scar like this. The other thing I'm doing is I can take my little handy tool and I can use that to help me open this up, because I can't, no amount of pulling can soften certain spots, right? Like this spot right here, just I can tell it's getting kind of crusty and almost feeling cardboardy. Like at this point, if I don't focus on that and either cable it or use this tool, it's gonna come out hard, right? But whereas this stuff on the side, like this still has flexibility and it feels kind of buttery. So a lot of softening hides and hide tanning in general is kind of knowing what things feel like at different stages and knowing what you have to do at that point to get it to be soft. And so, you know, really right now, that's the only spot that I'm like, that might turn out a little crusty, but do I really care? I mean, it depends on what you're using it for. The faces tend to come out a little crustier just because the grain structure, and usually you kind of ignore it because you're not really using it anyways. But yeah, so this, and the fur is also like, you know, really starting to dry out at this point. But let me grab the other one. And you can see, like these spots right here, they're starting to dry out, right? And if you watch that spot, it'll turn white when I pull on it. And I'm using my legs and my hands to open these hides up. And you can just watch those spots turn white, or like a light brown color. And so you want to systematically work the whole hide each time. And it's really important at this stage. Like you either need to finish these and keep working them so that they dry soft, or you need to put them outside to freeze, or put them in a freezer to freeze. Because if you just like forget about this for even like 30 minutes, it'll start being crusty and you'll have a hard time getting it opened back up. So it's, from my experience, it's best to just stay on it. Some people are like, oh, I let my hides get crusty and then I break them, you know, and like that's not really, in my opinion, is not the way to soften hides. So if you just keep on it, I mean, I'm going to spend all day, you know, probably a few hours next to a wood stove in a dry place, stretching both of these beavers, going from this one to that one, and, you know, yeah, it could take 3-4 hours for them to like totally dry out. but while it's drying out, you have to keep working it. And you'll notice that like the bellies will really start, they'll start drying out first because they're thinner, right? And then it'll like this, it'll just like work towards the center. It also depends on how it was wrung. Like, so after these were outside freezing and they were still really wet, I brought them in and I thawed them out, and then I squeegeed them with this on a pad on the floor, and I got out as much excess moisture as I could so that they would dry faster. And I, you know, that may not be like a very even process, and so right, like it seems like right now it's losing moisture right in this band in the center, which is like kind of weird because this is thicker, but for whatever reason there's still moisture in like this area and this area, and it could just be because this skin up here it is still a little bit thicker than this spot here. But right now is like kind of the critical moment where you don't have to worry too much about these really wet spots. And like I wouldn't sit here and like really work on this wet spot, because you're really only doing anything if it's like at the stage where it's lost enough moisture where when you're opening it up, you can feel and you can see a change in the skin. You still want to work it, but you don't like. I would spend more time focusing on areas like this where it's kind of patchy. It's, you know, it's some spots are turning white, some spots are still wet, and I would like really focus on those. And you really want to just like pull in all different directions. If you're worried about the fur, you could do it this way, but then you can't really see where you're working, and I don't really think that it hurts the fur. I'm also not selling these, so I'm not worried about that as much. But really just like, I mean, it takes a lot of like hand strength. You're just grabbing the skin. And then a lot of people will use pumice stone to kind of help fluff it up or finish it, or a cable, and there's a cable set up here too that we could maybe show at some point. Yeah, that's softening beaver hide. Okay, so there's a couple little spots on this hide that are getting a little crusty, and there are spots that are kind of a congregation of scars. And that might just never really be buttery soft. But I'm going to try to cable it a little bit. And so you kind of want to fold the hide like that and focus on certain areas. You can do just do the whole hide like this. And you're putting a decent amount of pressure on it, but you know, you don't need to put a ton, and it really does help open up the fibers. But cabling is, you don't want to just like cable the hide all the time, right? Like, cabling is a tool that you, in my opinion, that you use to like open up specific areas that are being kind of stubborn, or like thicker areas, like the tail. You know, and it kind of helps fluff the skin up too, and it you'll notice that after you do it in a certain spot, you'll be able to like open it up further. But if you cable too much, this is abrasive, and if your hide is already thinned a lot, like this one is, I've free scraped it, and I think it's thin enough everywhere, you know, and so if I cable it too much, I risk you know, basically abrading it so much that it makes it thinner, or there's weak spots and they rip open. So the other thing that cabling does is it warms up the skin, and so it does kind of help dry it out a little bit too. So cabling spots that still have a lot of moisture in them, that are really not very dry yet, I don't know that it really serves any purpose. It's really for spots that are getting close, like are kind of this white color, but they're starting to get a little cardboardy. Then you would like cable those spots.
Okay, now we're smoking the beaver hides that I just softened. I sewed them skin side in together. You can sew 2 beavers together if they're the same size. And then you sew on a canvas skirt like this. This is just a pair of pants. Denim pants. Get a bed of coals going in the stove. Have a nice low angle so it doesn't draw too fast. And then you use punky, I'm just using punky aspen, or cottonwood, I should say, balsam poplar. And plug as many of the holes as you can. Leave some parts like this isn't sewed together here, so that I can look inside. And also you need to be able to stick your hand in there and put sticks inside. That's what holds it open. You don't want the skin touching each other anywhere. And you can move it around a bit. Move the sticks every once in a while so you don't get spots. But yeah, I'm going to let this smoke for a few hours and check it every once in a while and see how the color is. I'd like them to be darker. Plug up as much of these holes as you can. I've got holes in this that I should have sewed up, but it's fine. And I'm just doing it in this tent because it's easy, because there's already a rope and I could just tie the whole thing up. It doesn't need to be in a tent like this. You don't need this hair to get smoked. You just need to get the skin side smoked. And it's a little cold outside, and if a breeze picks up, the tent will prevent it from moving around. I just filled the stove all the way up with punky wood. Once there was a bed of coals in there. You don't attach the hide until you've got coals, and then you put the punk in there.
This is my finished beaver parka, and the bottom panels here are the 2 beavers that I was tanning in the videos. And yeah, so they came out pretty soft, and I smoked them for way longer than they needed to be smoked, but I had all day to do it, so I just let them go all day. And I used I used cottonwood or balsam poplar punk that was relatively dry. Yeah. Back. This is what you can do if you tan beaver hides. You can make yourself a fur parka or mittens or a hat or a Speedo. That's it. Thanks for watching our beaver tanning video.